All right, so welcome to the spring of 2020 semester. This is Digital Tools for Designers, also known as Archie 135. Hopefully you guys are all in the right place. I'm guessing you probably are by this point, even though the door numbers don't match. It says 108 out there, it says 103 in there, whatever. You're here, that's a good thing. So we're gonna get started today. It's not too much of a heavy hitter day. It'll be pretty easy getting through it. We're gonna go through all that typical first day stuff. And so I'll talk through what's going on in the two handouts that I gave you. We'll do a little exercise. We'll make sure all of you get registered for the course website. You get kind of your feet wet, and then we'll start a little bit more in depth next class. So essentially, we're here. Or you're gonna. Things never work the first day. It's always the fact. Like I can't advance my slides. Like it is what it is. So we're gonna skip this, and we'll do it this way. My name is Grant Adams. I'm here to be your instructor, your professor for the next 16 weeks. I'm an associate professor of architecture here at DVC. That means I'm here part-time, which translates to I'm here on Mondays and Wednesdays. If you look for me on Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays, I'm off doing my other work, so I won't be here. gadams@dvc.edu. This is my school-sponsored email. Grant@digitaltoolsforarchitects.com also gets me there. If you send me an email to my DVC, it gets bounced to the Digital Tools for Architects, so you might get a response from that account instead. They're both there. My phone number is right there. You can text me. That's fine. I reserve the right not to grab that one. No worries. I reserve the right not to respond if it's 3 in the morning. Probably won't respond. If it's a weekend, I might not respond. It is what it is, but it's there, and you by all means can text me because maybe it's something quick and I can quickly get you back on track. So it's there. It's a little different than a lot of the professors do, but I figure if I can get you back on track real easy, that's not a problem. My office hours fluctuate a little bit. Generally, I'm always here, whether it's Monday or Wednesday. I'm here early, so I'm usually in here about 6:45. Or so. So the room will always be open. You're more than welcome to come in. Typically, I'm in my office during that time frame. But officially, my office hour in the morning is from 6:55 to 7:55 on Mondays. Doesn't mean you can't come on Wednesday, but it's official. That's my official time. And in the afternoon, it's after my second class. So I teach 2 back-to-back classes. So my next office hour is after class on Wednesday. So it would be 2:15 to 3:15. Because of the way the timing works out. It doesn't matter which one you come to. I try to spread it out so that everybody gets an opportunity. If you guys have a question, it seems easier right before your class to talk about it, but you can come to the other one. Generally, I'm in 104B, which is my office, which is right there with the light on. So if I'm around, I'm there or talking to somebody in this general vicinity. So just be aware that I'm there, and if you want to talk about anything, that's what I'm there for. It's amazing how little people use office hours. Like, it's fine. I get paid to be there, so I don't mind if you don't come. But it's something for you guys to use. And so when we get to the final portfolio and you start thinking about your portfolio, come to me and say, hey, can you look at my portfolio? Can we talk about it? It's what I'm here for. I'd love to make your portfolio better, but somehow people are afraid of me or something. So it is what it is. So a little bit about me and where I come from and what my background is. I think it's always important to have some general understanding of who's up here, who's standing, teaching. I've been teaching since I got out of grad school, so I've been here for about 12 and a half years. I've taught this class. This was the first class that I came in and taught. I was hired to teach this class. And so I've taught it this is the 25th semester of teaching it in a row. So I think I know what I'm talking about. At least I hope so by now. A little bit of background for me. I did my undergraduate at Berkeley in architecture. I got a Bachelor of Arts in Architecture degree, which is a 4-year unaccredited degree in architecture. And as you go forward, and this might be too early, you might just be starting out, and that's totally okay, you will start to learn that there's differences in the degree programs for architecture that you go through. That's why I'm telling you what I have. So I went through the undergraduate program at Berkeley. I graduated, I took a year off, and then I came back and did my Master of Architecture at UC Berkeley as well. It's pretty rare to do them back-to-back at the same school, and there is good reason for that because you kind of exhaust all the classes, so I ended up doing a bunch of independent studies as a grad student. It worked out for me. I had some circumstances that made it a good fit for me. But I spent a lot of time at Berkeley. Things have changed significantly, however, since I was there. So people like to ask me questions, and it's like, I don't really know anymore because it's been a while. That was 2007 that I graduated, so you can do the math. It's been a while. So anyway, it's a 2 years accredited program, so it's considered a 4+2. So I could be a practicing architect with that degree because I have a master's degree. The alternative degree program in architecture is a 5-year accredited. It's a Bachelor of Architecture degree. That's what Cal Poly offers. So they're just different degrees. You go 5 years there. You go 6 years if you do 4+2. Although a lot of the 5-year people end up going on to Berkeley and doing their 1-year masters to get it's the same amount of time in the end. So for whatever that's worth, that's my schooling. That's my background. What do I do in my free time? No, what do I do in my real job? That's more like it. I'm a designer. I'm not a licensed architect. I chose not to become a licensed architect. Doesn't mean that I don't do all my own design work. Doesn't mean that I don't submit plans and do all the stuff that an architect does. I'm just not legally allowed to call myself an architect. So it's a name thing. I'm okay with that. I didn't need to go through the intern program, etc. So I do a lot of design work. I do a lot of design build work. I'm a property manager, so I manage apartment buildings, etc. I have a contractor's license, so I kind of do more of the design build phase of things. I'm about to finish a project in downtown Lafayette. It's been going on for like 2 years and 2 months, and I can't wait for it to be done. But that'll be done in the next probably 4 weeks or so. There's a course website for this class. It is not through the college. It's not through their Canvas system. I don't touch the Canvas system. There is nothing to do with Canvas in this class. So you can throw out all that knowledge. I run my own website, and I do that for a variety of reasons, some of which is because I can organize the content far better than what is available on Canvas. So it's digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. Technically, if you typed in digitaltoolsfordesigners.com, it would get to the same place, but it's essentially digitaltoolsforarchitects.com. You will use this website to view all of your exercises, to view all of your assignments. Every piece of paper that I hand you in class is posted on the website. All the links that I reference on the handouts are actually real links that you can click on the website. Makes things a little bit easier. Every semester I'm tempted to go paperless, and there's always a few people that really like the paper, so I keep making the copies, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Important course information. I'll have a course calendar. It's not posted yet, but I'll have that probably by the end of today, where you can see what's coming, what the lectures are going to be, what the lab assignments are going to be, etc. You will post all of your exercises and assignments on the website. Initially, it's a little like, wait a minute, this is different. How am I doing it? And you'll be a little confused. I guarantee you after this week, maybe into next week, you'll still be a little confused, and then it'll be so easy. You'll pick it up real quick. I've never had an issue with anybody. But the other thing that I have a lot of content on there, I have YouTube videos, I have tutorials, I have write-ups, I have all kinds of different ways that people learn. And I try to make it so that it's accessible to you guys however you learn and however you want to do it, that's fine. I've had people that I'll do my live lecture, and then they'll pull up the YouTube videos, and they'll watch a little bit, pause, watch the next little bit, pause. They'll go through it that way. Some people really like the write-ups. They'll go through all the write-ups, step-by-steps, photos, etc. We'll go through the website so you'll see it. It's all on there. The last thing, and I'll talk more about this a little bit later in a further slide, is that we comment on each other's work through the website. And I'll show you guys how to do that. We'll do the first set of comments all together next class, so you don't have to do anything today, so that you get used to how that works. This is just a little preview of what it looks like. But like I said, we'll look at it a little bit more in depth. So the class schedule is a little funky because they switched the semesters from 18 weeks to 16 weeks, and they tacked on a little bit of time. So we get weird times now. So our class starts at 7:55 as opposed to 8. Weird, but it is what it is. So roughly 7:55 to 8:55 is the lecture portion of the class. I will probably start at about 8 every day, as opposed to 7:55. That doesn't mean that you should roll in at 8. That means you should roll in at 7:55 and get your computer started up and do your comments and be ready for me to start at 8. Does that make sense? Okay. So then 8:55 to 11 is the lab portion of this class. So we essentially have 2 hours and 5 minutes of lab, and we have an hour of lecture each day. This varies a little bit. Some days I talk a little bit longer. Some days I talk a little bit shorter. It depends on the topic that we're going through. So that time fluctuates a little bit. Generally, I try to put a break in between these two. So when I finish the lecture, we'll take a 5 to 10 minute break. Sometimes people need coffee. It's early in the morning. You got to get going, that sort of thing. So that's why we do that, to get you guys ready. I already talked about my office hours, so we can skip right over that. So this course is fundamentally about the Adobe Suite, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator. We'll cover those in great depth. You'll be very proficient in those three. We'll do a tiny bit of AutoCAD. The AutoCAD that I try to teach is not the AutoCAD that you learn in the AutoCAD class. So AutoCAD is the kind of thing that really needs its own class. You need to spend enough time working through it to really understand it. I can't do that in this class along with everything else. But there are some skills in AutoCAD that I think you really need going forward for some of the classes that are coming up for you, or maybe you're concurrently enrolled in. So we try to cover that stuff. So we'll spend a couple weeks in there. And we'll spend a little bit of time in SketchUp at the end, doing some 3D modeling. People like that. But a lot of what I talk about with SketchUp is how do you take that 3D model and fold it back into the other programs. So as we build our way through, we start in Photoshop, then we go to InDesign. So this is actually the order that we go in the class. But each time we move, so we do Photoshop first, and we're obviously just working in Photoshop. Then we go into InDesign. The assumption is that you're still working in Photoshop and InDesign, and you're using the two of them together. Then we go into Illustrator, and you start using InDesign and Photoshop plus Illustrator. So we're always building as we go forward. So by the time we get down here to SketchUp, there's a little AutoCAD, but we'll just kind of skip over, and you should be using these three with SketchUp. And I try to emphasize how you use them together to create a really good product. There's a reason that Adobe makes all three of those as separate programs. Not just everybody uses Photoshop because that's what they're good at. My guess is that if I had to take a survey of what you guys were most comfortable in, the most comfortable piece of software right now for all of you would be Photoshop. It tends to be the gateway drug. Sometimes I'm off, but it is what it is. Don't worry, we'll get you there. Student learning outcomes, these are available on, I think the course descriptions on the catalog. But anyway, essentially we're creating digital presentations that incorporate images, text, graphics that are related to design. That's a broad topic, obviously. You're going to be going through that. Construct in 2- and 3-dimensional digital representation of design elements. I love how vague these are. Like if you really think about it, that's a really vague term. So we've got a lot of flexibility in there. Operate and manipulate images from peripherals such as scanners, printers, and digital cameras. This is the one that's a little bit annoying for me. I have to teach you guys how to plot out of the plotters at the end of class. So I have to have proof that you guys can plot. So it's one of those weird ones that's in there. But don't worry, we'll cover that and you'll all get to it. There is a book associated with the class. It's the Digital Tools for Architects Handbook. Essentially, this is all the tutorials and stuff bound in one nice, convenient little book. I've had students who've moved on in the past. Like I said, I've taught this for a number of years. And they'll take it with them to Berkeley, and they'll go back and reference, oh, yeah, I need to do those clipping masks. How do I go back and do that? Oh, and here's my little notes that I did in the margin that makes sense. So I encourage you to bring it with you today, with you each class that you come in. Take your own personal notes that help jog your memory about, oh yeah, that's how I'm supposed to do that. That's how I'm supposed to do that. Because these are all things that will come back and fold back in. If you can get a discount on it, by all means, get a discount on it. Take money from the publisher. That's great. So search for Lulu coupon codes and see if you can get a discount, get free shipping, whatever. There is one more recommended textbook. I don't make this a required textbook because it's really only relevant during the graphic design portion of the class. So we're only using it for about 3 weeks, but it's fantastic. I do have a copy of it, so if you just want to borrow it and take a look through it, that's okay with me as well. It's the Layout Workbook by Kristen Cullen. I show a lot of slides from it when we're in that graphic design section. She's really good at teaching you how to lay out your work and organize your thoughts. And so it's a good book. One of the great things about being in design classes is that you don't have to buy that giant chemistry textbook that costs like $300. You could buy little books like this that maybe cost $30 or $40, and they're awesome, and they're full of pictures and all that kind of good stuff. So I encourage you to keep it, and you end up keeping these books long term, and you go back and reference them and whatever. It's kind of this design library thing. Okay, so we get to the important slide. This is the one everybody cares about. How do I get my grade in this class? There is no midterm. There is no final exam in this class. Yay! Your grade is based on these 4 things. Number 1, your lab exercise, and I have a slide about each one of these, so I'll explain what they all are as we go forward. 20% of your grade is your lab exercises. 40% of your grade is your assignments, and I've mentioned those a few times already. 30% of your overall grade is your final portfolio. So you do have a final project in the class. It's just not a final exam. I'm not going to sit down and say, you need to do a clipping mask in front of me. And no, it doesn't work that way. You just need to show a really good body of work at the end. So there'll be a final portfolio, and I'll talk about that in a slide coming up. And then we have participation as well for 10%. The course has a pretty consistent workload, and I try to do this because a lot of you guys are in studio classes. How many people are in 121 this semester? Not too many of you, a few of you. So you're going to find this out when you're in a studio class, is that you have these lulls where you're kind of working, and then all of a sudden you have this like panic mode of I have so much to do and I have no time to do it. And so there's these peaks and valleys over the course of the semester with how much work that you have to do. This class isn't like that. If you're here and you do your work, you pretty much always have a consistent amount of work. There's always generally an assignment that you should be working on in the background. There's always lab work to do. Most of it you can do in class. There's not too much homework. Like it's a good even, so it's a good complement to those design classes. And I do it that way on purpose. So you should be able to take this with another design class without a problem. So it's nice to kind of throw that out there just so you know what to expect in this kind of a class. So let's talk about each one of these in a little bit more depth. So the exercises are what we do on a daily basis. So you have a handout today already for exercise 101. That's what we're going to do in class together today. It's going to kind of get you started, but this is essentially the piece of learning that happens every day in your lab portion. It's designed to be completed during that 2-hour block. If I talk longer and you only have an hour and a half left of lab, guess what? The exercise is only for an hour and a half. So I try to adjust if I know I'm going to talk a little bit long. Likewise, if I talk a little bit short, the exercise might take a little bit longer. So it varies a little bit. It's designed to be finished in that lab portion, though. If you haven't quite finished it, you can take a little bit more time and do it, but you don't have to. You can post it unfinished. I'm okay with that, because it's really just about getting the ideas out and learning the skills, etc. They're due at the end of the lab period on the day that their lab is assigned. In rare cases, it falls over because we do something over 2 days, but it's pretty uncommon. I set all of these up so that they have a pass, not pass grading system. It's really easy. You do it, you get 100%. You don't do it, you get a 0. Sounds pretty easy, right? So the key here is that you can feel free to experiment, and if it turns out really awful, if it's the ugliest thing you've ever done, you're still going to get 100% on it because you did it. So this is very much about learning how to do what it is we're trying to do. If I'm trying to teach you about clipping masks, or I'm trying to teach you about levels adjustments in Photoshop, it's about learning what a levels adjustment is. What happens when I play with it? How can I make that image better? That's what the lab exercise is for. And if you didn't quite do it right or doesn't turn out to be the most beautiful thing in the world, hey, that's okay. At least you understand the concept, and that's what's really important. So the lab exercise is fundamentally about the concept and the skill. Then we move over into the assignments. So that was 20% of your grade. 40% of your grade is the assignments. There will be probably 6 assignments over the course of the semester. There's kind of always one that you should be working on. You won't have the first one quite yet. We've got a week or two before you get the first one, and then there kind of will always be one that you're working on. They're worth 40% of your overall grade. If you do the math, that's about 6 to 7% each for each one that you work on. Assignments are graded based on the skills, but also what the final product looked like. So I was picking on the levels adjustment or a curves adjustment in Photoshop, and if you have no idea what that means, it's totally okay. That's what you're here for. But the exercise, we play around with levels and curves, and you try to figure out what's going on and how's it going to work and what makes the image look good. And if it turns out bad, no big deal. When we get to the actual assignment, you're going to use the levels and you're going to use curves to make the image look fantastic. And that's what you're going to turn in. So I want the end product to look good using the skills. So it's not just, hey, I used every single one of the skills you taught. It's more, no, this turned out perfect. I didn't have to use a few of the skills, but this is the perfect image. So it's about the design. It's about the overall product and about the skills that you're using, that you're getting graded on. Okay? You may elect to improve your grades by submitting one regrade for each assignment by the end of the semester. Okay, so this is really generous of me, I think. Okay, so essentially, look, I'll explain how it is. Design school is hard. It is. You're learning how to be a designer. That's what you're here to do. And it's a lot of work. It's also really hard to put yourself out there and go for it when you're worried about your grade. Is that true? Yeah. That's what it always comes down. That's why grad school is great. When you get to grad school, nobody cares about your grades anymore. You just do stuff. It's great. But right now, you guys do care about your grades, and so it matters. And in some classes, you get really timid because you're afraid about your grade. You do something conservative, and you maybe didn't push that design as far as you would have or you wanted to because you were worried about that grade. I'll tell you right now in this class, push as far as you can. Leap off the edge of that cliff and go for it because you won't be disappointed. In fact, you'll probably be rewarded for it from me. But worst case, it turns out absolutely awful, like horrible. And you get a grade from me, it'll probably be better than you think it will be. But you get a grade and you say, oh man, I got a C on this. I really didn't want to get a C, but I took a risk and it just didn't work out. Guess what? You got this regrade in your back pocket. No problem. Now on a regrade, it's as if your first one didn't exist. It just vanishes on you. So that being said, your grade can go up, or if you do a worse job, your grade could go down. Now, I think it would be really hard to do a worse job than what you did. But technically speaking, because it's not a, did you improve your old one, it's just like, I never saw your first one, here's a second shot at it. Okay? So use it to your advantage. You can do one of these for every one of the assignments. So theoretically, you could do 6 of them over the course of the semester. I have never seen somebody do 6 regrades. I think the most I've seen somebody do is 3. So it's there. You can do it if you want, and you can kind of play around with it as the semester goes on. I will encourage you, if you bomb out on something and you really didn't like it, do the regrade before the end of the semester because you're going to be too busy at the end of the semester. So just do it, and then you can go ahead and submit it. When it comes to the regrades, though, I will not go in and grade it until the very end of the semester. And I'll tell you the honest truth is that if you have an A at the end of the semester, even if you've done a regrade, I won't go back and do the regrade anymore because you can't get higher than an A. So if you have an A, you just get an A. I'm not going to go back and do the regrade because it doesn't matter. If you have a B, then I'll definitely go back and do those regrades. I'll go through them at the end of the semester. The other thing that I don't do is I don't do the regrades as you go because I don't want to keep track of, well, how many times have you regraded this? You only get to do it once, so it's at the end of the semester. Make sense? Okay. So that's what I just said there. Final portfolio. So like I said, there's a final project for this class. It's a portfolio of your work. It's going to contain all of those 6 assignments for this class. It has to. But it can also include any work that's from outside of this class. And so those of you that are in industrial design, a lot of times you have a lot of work that you want to try to put in your portfolio. I've seen that happen. Likewise, the architectural side, for those of you, you've done 121, or maybe you've gotten into 220, or you're working on 220 and you want to put some of those projects in, by all means, put that stuff in. I'm not under the delusion that your ultimate portfolio is going to have work from this class in it. Like that's going to get cut and you're going to have other stuff in it. But this is about learning how to present your work, how to present your ideas, how to tell the story of you, who you are as a designer. And so we'll spend time talking about that. I'll give some lectures on what portfolios are. I'll show you a bunch of examples of portfolios. So we'll get a good quality portfolio going for you. It's worth 30% of your overall grade. That being said, I've seen students who have gone into the final doing great in the class. They've had A's. And they just didn't spend time on the portfolio. They threw something together and it turned out awful. That can bring your grade down. So don't do it. It's something that we start, what is it? It's spring semester. So what would this be? It's about March, I think, that we start on it, where you get going. I might be off. I know it's October in the fall semester that we start on it. But in the spring semester, I think it's in March where we get started on it. And so you'll be working on it kind of in the background all the way along through the final. So it's designed to take a couple months to mature and to get better. It is for you to do on your own. So we will have limited time. There's at least 2 lectures in class that I'll talk about portfolios, and on those days you'll actually do some work on your portfolio in class, but you're not going to be able to do your whole portfolio in 2 class days. It's not going to happen. So you're going to have to spend a little bit of time outside of class working on it, kind of getting your ideas together. Please come visit me during office hours. Show me what you're working on. Let me redline it. Let me correct it. Let me give you little tips. It's amazing how much better it is when somebody else looks at it and then you go back and work on it some more. That's always a really important thing. Course participation. So this is part of your participation grade for the class. After each exercise and each assignment, you're going to be required to give 3 constructive comments to your classmates. We'll do this through the course website system. And this is something that's actually really important. And a lot of times people are like, oh, why do you make us do this? It's awful. Look, I get it. I get that it can be annoying. But the reason that it's annoying is because you're not thinking about its purpose. And so the reason that we go through and we try to go through this constructive feedback thing is that you as a designer, as you learn to become a designer, have to figure out how to articulate what makes something good or what makes something bad. And it's not something like, I really like it, it's pretty. Or, wow, you used the color pink, that's great. Like, that didn't help anybody. So you have to figure out as a designer how to say, wow, I really like this. So what do I say about it? What's making this good? Maybe it's, you really used a strong diagonal composition and it brings out the elements in the photo really nicely. Or maybe it's the alternative. Maybe, hey, did you think about changing your composition or your cropping so that you followed more of a rule of thirds, because I think that would cause the background to play off of the foreground in the photo. So it can be constructive negative, it can be constructive positive, but it's about how do you articulate what's good and what's bad about somebody's design. And you've had this happen. You guys have been through reviews, you've done your review process, the guest reviewers have come in, and some of the reviewers are really engaging and you're listening to them, you're going, I didn't think about that and that's so great. And other reviewers are giving you the, oh, it's really pretty. And you're like, well, that didn't help me. So I'm trying through this system to teach you guys how to be good reviewers for your peers. How to teach you guys how to articulate what it is that makes something good in design, as opposed to, wow, it's really pretty. So when you do these comments, there's a character minimum, so you can't just like say great or whatever. So you have to get through it. Likewise, there's also something on the website that will stop you if you comment too fast. Meant to make you slow down and actually write good comments. So you'll run into that. If you stay up to date on comments, they are so not a big deal. If you get behind, it is a big deal. So I will remind you as we go through the semester. Here's how it works. And I'll make this really easy for you. Right? You show up to class on time. You sit down. Most of you are early. That's great. You sit down at 7:53, turn on the computer. 7:55, computer's booted up. Log into the website, write your 3 comments. You got 5 minutes to write 3 comments. It's like 1.5 minutes per comment with a little extra spillover sip your coffee time. Class starts, all is good. Some days you have an assignment and an exercise that you have to comment on. So you got 6, so you have to budget your time a little bit better. Maybe I start lecture a little bit late, so you get a little extra time. You do that every day when you sit down to class, and you're current on all your comments. No problem, no big catastrophe at the end of the semester. I have had students who have gotten into the last day or 2 of the semester, realize they're way behind on comments, and have had to sit down for an hour or 2 hours to write 70 comments. It's not fun to do it that way. So just do it as you go along. It's really easy. Make your life easy. Build it into your daily routine. It's worth 5% of your overall grade or half of your 10% participation grade. Materials. So in this class, you're required to have a USB flash drive or a portable hard drive to store all your work for this class. Okay, so you have to have some kind of a drive. How many people have taken a class in one of the computer labs here in the ET buildings before? Most of you have, I'm guessing. If you've never taken a class here, I'll warn you right now that if the computer turns off, you lose anything that's saved on the computer. So they're frozen so that they restart in the same mode every time. So you can't really screw them up. But it also means you can't save any of your stuff. So you want to make sure that you save it on some kind of a device. It's also really good to have a backup of that. We'll talk about it next class. OneDrive actually works really well. I used to use Dropbox, and I liked Dropbox for a long time. Some people try to use Google Drive. It just doesn't sync really well with these computers. The lab computers just don't play nice with Google Drive. So guess what? We're stuck with OneDrive. You guys all have a student account with OneDrive that I think has 25 gigs for free, or maybe it's 100 gigs for free. I don't know. It's a bunch of space. It should be enough to get you through the semester, certainly. And so I'll teach you guys how to set that up so it'll back up to your flash drive, not to the computer on the itself, but onto your flash drive or onto your hard drive. A couple other things that are a really good idea. So if you have a flash drive, it's not one of the little itty bitty baby flash drives, but if you have one that's like a normal flash drive and you plug it into these school computers, they happen to be right at knee level. And I've had it happen at least 3 times in this lab where somebody's turned to talk to their neighbor and they've hit their flash drive with their knee and broken it off. So it's not the best system, but it is what it is. So I think this is about $8 on Amazon. It's a little USB extension cable. It's like a 1-foot extension cable, super cheap. Get one of these, plug your flash drive into one end, plug this into the computer. Then you eliminate that problem. If you have a hard drive, it's not as big of a deal because you already have a cord plugged into your hard drive, so you're not going to destroy the drive. So if you have a flash drive, highly recommend this. It's up to you, but it's there, and I want to point that out to you as well. Likewise, you are responsible, and I'm going to give you the big doom and gloom speech next class, so I'll save most of my doom and gloom for that class. But you are responsible to keep track of your flash drive. You are responsible not to leave it here and lose your work. You're responsible not to leave it in your pants and put your pants in the washing machine. Done that several times. Did that with my AirPods. Not a good thing. Don't do it. Okay? If people have when they have the external hard drives, they somehow don't leave them behind and they keep track of them. Somehow there's this thing about the flash drive that people always leave behind. If you leave your flash drive behind and I find it, I will either put it right below my monitor here, or I'll put it right over here on the chalkboard tray. That's where I tend to place them. It used to be, we were joking about this over winter break. I was with some friends and we were talking about being back in college and whatever. I remember when I bought my first flash drive, it was a 1 gig flash drive, and I thought it was awesome. It cost $150. So right now, and back in that day, you had to safeguard your flash drive with your life because it was like $150, and people were like, "Oh, that looks good." Now flash drives are so cheap that nobody really steals them anymore. So it's more that you're careless and you leave it, or you lose it, or you go through the wash with it, or something like that. So I'm not too worried about people stealing it. That's why they tend to just collect up here. When I first started teaching, people would pilfer them, for lack of a better term. So I'm not overly worried about that, but it is your responsibility to keep track of your work. If you come to me and you say, "Oh my God, I broke my flash drive off with my knee," I'm going to say, "Oh, that sucks. Oh well, should have bought one of these," right? Nothing I can do. I'm giving you that warning now, and I'll give it to you really strong next class, so get ready for that. Don't lose it, right? This is your responsibility. It's not mine. So there's no free passes because you lost your work. Okay? Camera is a really good idea. Most of you have phones that have good cameras in them. Great, we can use those. If you have a digital SLR or a better camera, by all means, we can use that as well. Okay? We'll talk about backup stuff next class going forward. So attendance. Attendance in this class is mandatory, and sometimes people lose track of this thing. So attendance is mandatory. You have to be here. It's not an online class. You have to be here. Furthermore, you have to be here for the full time. Some of you will be really good at, say, Photoshop, and you'll breeze through it, and it'll take you half the lab, and you'll have an hour left. That doesn't mean you get to pack up your stuff and say, "Hey, see you later." That means you've just won an hour of extra time to work on one of your other assignments for another class. Lucky you. Because all of you that are in 121, and I'm sorry for those of you that are in the industrial design program, I don't know the course numbers, so I can't reference courses for you. But for those of you that are in the architecture 121, I'll tell you right now, you haven't even had your first class yet, and you have work to do that you should be working on. That's how that works. So there is always something that you can be working on. Hey, guess what? You're also here in a lab where you have other students that you can ask questions, and you can even ask me questions about some other class. You don't know how to do it. It's amazing how many people ask me about their posters that they have to do in 121, right? There's no reason not to. I'm here. Go ahead and ask me. So just start working on something else, okay? I recognize when it gets close to the end of the class, sometimes you need to, I need a break before my next class because I've got, that's fine. I'm not going to be a stickler about this stuff. But I just want you to be aware that it is your responsibility to be here. And if you're not here, that's a problem, okay? So your attendance class counts as half your participation grade. It's the other half, so it's 5% being here. The truth is, being here is a really good thing. Because if I'm saying something and it doesn't make any sense, you can raise your hand and say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Can you do it again? If you're just watching the online video, you can't say, wait, can you do it again? Can you explain it differently? You're here, ask me the question. That's a good thing. I think I covered all that. Don't be late either. Okay? There's nothing more annoying. I know it's 8 a.m. Guess what? I'm here too, right? The good news is none of y'all have big excuses about parking, right? The 11 a.m. people are going to come here, and there's going to be absolutely no parking because there's never any parking for the first 2 weeks of class, and then everybody stops showing up, and I guess there's parking. But you guys are here early enough to where there is not a parking excuse. There's a little bit of traffic at the middle school. I'll tell you that, in the high school. So you got to fight that a little bit. But generally speaking, I think you can probably make it on time. That's the way it is. If you don't show up on time, if you trickle in 20 minutes late, and I've already done half the lecture, you just missed half the lecture. And it's going to be really hard to pick up with whatever I left off. So be here on time, get those comments done, and then we'll start and everything will flow nicely. Okay? So that's your attendance. General guidelines. If you miss 2 weeks or more, you may be withdrawn from the class at my discretion. So it's a 16-week semester. That would mean you missed 4 classes of the 16 weeks. So 2 weeks, you're behind. I'll tell you that right now. It's a bad thing. If you're not going to be here, this is something that actually is really important, and I built it into the grading because you get less of a penalty if you tell me about it than if you don't tell me about it and just don't show up. Please, before you come, if you're not going to come, text me, email me, let me know, hey, I'm not going to be there. You don't even have to tell me why. Just tell me you're not going to be there. Okay? Same thing would happen. Okay, let's say that I come down with the flu, and this has happened. Okay? How rude would it be for me to have you all show up and have a note on the door? I know a lot of professors do that. I think it's really rude, right? If I'm in bed dying of the flu, let's hope it's not coronavirus, but if I'm in bed dying of the flu, I'm going to find a way to send an email to all of you to let you know don't bother coming. Because it's not fair. You should be able to plan your day around that. So I asked for the same courtesy backwards. Same thing happens. Okay, let's say you have your job. Say you work at the Apple Store, you work at Starbucks, right? What happens if you just don't show up? You probably don't have a job anymore, right? So this is about responsibility. So all you have to do is tell me. And I even gave you the out of you don't even have to tell me why. You just have to tell me I'm not going to be here. And the advantage of that is that I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I'm really waiting for you to show up. And you're not here. And should I start yet? Should I not start? I know you're not going to be here. Hey, cool. I'll go ahead and start. So it's a courtesy thing. So just let me know. It's built into the grading. You lose less of your participation if you tell me in advance than if you don't tell me. Okay? Notice that that is in advance. It doesn't mean send me an email. Oh, yeah, by the way, I wasn't there today. No, you missed the point. You missed the point. Okay? So if you miss more than 3 assignments, you're probably not going to do very well either. So you might be dropped or you might receive an F. Okay? This is a college class. And I think and this is a philosophical issue that I have with the school here, is that there is so much hand-holding about, your last day to withdraw, and you should really withdraw, and you should, Look, it's a college class. You know how you're doing. You'll get lots of grade feedback in this class. You'll know what your grade is. I'll make sure to give you a grade sheet before the last day to withdraw. If you don't feel like you're doing well, take yourself out of the class. I don't like to take people out of the, if you're getting a C or you're getting a D, I don't like to take you out of the class. That's not the way college works. It's not the way life works, right? So if you want out, get out. If you want in, stay in. That being said, if you do a bad job, you're going to get an F. It is what it is. That's the way it works. So I'm a little bit more liberal with the fail instead of withdraw. Just like to throw that out there so you all know. That doesn't mean that you guys are all going to fail, okay? Don't be scared of me, right? Chances are you're all going to do awesome. Most of the time, it's the people that stop showing up or the people that stop turning things in that do bad. If you're here, you show up, and you do things, you're going to do just fine. Pad that grade. Okay. Assignment due dates are announced in class. They'll be on the handouts. They'll be on the course calendar. Assignments are due before I start talking on the day that they're due. So let's say we have an assignment due on Wednesday, the 29th. If we don't worry, don't panic. Okay? But let's say we had one due on Wednesday. You would have had to post it before I start talking on the 29th. Does that make sense? So before about 8 a.m. on Wednesday, you would have had to have posted it for it to be on time. If you post it 10 minutes after I start talking, it's late. And you're subject to the late penalty. The late penalty is pretty severe. Is it on this sheet or is it on the next one? It's not on there. There we go. Next slide. So the late penalty is pretty severe. So if you turn in something late, you get docked 10% right there. So if you had an A, you just went to a B. If you turn it in, and you have until the next class day. So let's continue that scenario. I didn't turn it in before I started talking on Wednesday. I can turn it in anytime after I start talking on Wednesday, all the way until the following Monday when I start talking, and I will only lose 10%. If I start talking on Monday, next Monday, and you still haven't turned it in, there's 20%. So you just went from an A to a C. So we can go all the way to a D. The maximum after 4 class days, I'll just give you a flat 50% if you turn it in, because it's better to turn something in than to have a 0. So that's how the late penalty works. The reason it's so severe is because this is how life works. If you have a design project and you need to go before a planning commission, you can't, and it's due at a certain time to get on the agenda, and you don't turn it in, you're not on the agenda. There's no leeway, there's no talking your way into it, it's just a set time. It's a deadline. You either make it or you don't make it. So it's the same thing in this class. You make it or you don't make it. There's no flux room. And if you don't make it, you get penalized. So I'm not going to tell you this, okay? This is secret. You guys ready for this? Would it be better to turn in something bad on time or to wait and do something better and turn it in late? Do something bad on time and do a regrade of it. But I didn't tell you that. So get your work in on time. That's the fundamental thing. So it's much better to, if you didn't finish or whatever, give me something on time and go back and do the regrade of it. Okay? Additional general guidelines. So I'm here. I want to talk to you. I want to help you through it. There's 32 of you and there's 1 of me. It's really hard for me to talk to every one of you individually and not have you waste a bunch of time. So instead of doing this, oh, I'm stuck. I see this, right? And maybe you really want a nap. Maybe that's what it is. But you do this. Instead of doing that, right, lean over and say, hey, do you know how to, I'm stuck here. Can you help me out? Right? Go on the course website. Look at my lecture from last semester. Look at the tutorial. Look at the write-up. Try to get yourself unstuck. It's not because I don't mind sitting down with you and trying to help you through it. It's just that I can't get to every single one of you all the time. And so I'll do my best to get through. Likewise, if you've asked me a question, I try to get through everybody else before I come back to you. If you keep asking me questions over and over and over again, I've had students do this where they do one step, raise their hand, and come over, raise their hand. It's like it's ongoing. It's like, look, I'm going to help everybody else so they get an even opportunity, and then I'll come back to you. I'm not picking on you. You're right in front of me. It is what it is. So try to help yourself out and get through it. And if you're stuck, that's what I'm here for, by all means. I suggest you take notes while I go through. Likewise, don't try, when I do the live demos of things, when I'm showing you how to do something, in some cases, I'll want you to do it with me, and we'll all do it together, and I'll wait and be patient. Sometimes I get through the whole demo, and some people will try to do it with me. but I'm generally a little faster than they are, and then they stop paying attention because they're trying to get the last step, and then suddenly they're behind and they're like, wait a minute, I'm totally lost. So when I'm doing the demo, instead of trying to do it with me, just watch me do the demo and know that you can go back and see the video later and go through the steps again. So try to concentrate on what I'm doing as opposed to tuning me out to try to finish a step and then being lost because you're not at the next step. I try really hard to record all the lectures and post them on YouTube. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/digitaltoolsforarch. So I post them all on there. Sometimes the recordings are bad. Sometimes I forget to turn on the microphone. Stuff happens. So I can't guarantee it. It's not an online class. I have no responsibility to ensure that you have the lectures, but I think it's a really useful learning tool, so I try really hard to do that. I teach 2 classes. The 135 is what you guys are in. Everything starts with 100. So your exercise is 101. The lecture is 101. The assignment will be 101. Does that make sense? Everything's in the hundreds. Everything from my 136, the afternoon class, some of you are in both classes. All of those are in the 200s. So I just try to make them all clear that way. So you guys are looking for the 100s when you're going through it. Listening to the recording, watching the recording is not the same thing as being in class, watching me do it and talking with it. Because you can ask questions when you're in class. You can't on the recording. So this is not an online class. You're required to be here. This is all supplemental to the learning. Creative Commons, everything we do in this class is licensed under Creative Commons. It just means you don't own anything. We're all doing it together. You're in a learning experience. If you have issues with this, I had one student, oh God, it was probably 8 years ago now, who had serious concerns about property rights and intellectual property and whatever, and we worked through it. So if you have serious concerns, we could talk about it. Otherwise, just go with it. You're all good. We're all just trying to learn. You're not that, I'll tell you right now, you're not that good at designer yet. So at some point, property, intellectual property probably matters. At this point, it doesn't matter. So just go with it, okay? So some student work, I'm just going to flip through some student work just so you can kind of see some of the stuff that we're going to do. We'll go through photography. We'll go through post-processing techniques. How do you compose an image? What makes a good composition? What makes a strong composition? Different techniques, etc. We'll go into photo editing. We'll combine things together that don't belong together so that you can kind of, this one's creepy. It's always been creepy. It creeps me out every time when it comes up. We'll talk about, how do you use Photoshop to combine things together. A lot of this is centered on how do you do collage. You have a design, how do you show it in context? How do you collage those things in and make them feel realistic? And so we'll go through a variety of examples like that. We'll do some graphic design. We'll talk about typography, fonts, font choice, hierarchy, what makes good use of fonts, etc. We'll talk about graphic design layouts, what's good composition graphically, those kinds of things. These are all lecture series posters. We'll do a lecture series poster. And they're all different, but they're all really well composed and really carefully thought out. So we'll go through that. We'll do some CAD drafting. We'll prepare for plotting because I have to be able to teach you guys how to use the plotters. Even though 220 is going away from plotting anymore, we're doing digital presentations. So I may evolve a little bit. I may do a combo digital presentation as well as the plot as part of this because you have to be prepared for that. Anyway, then we'll do some 3D modeling and collage work. This centers a lot on working with SketchUp, but then how do you collage into a real scene? How do you make something feel like it belongs in the scene and is actually there? And so we'll talk a lot about that kind of integration, different views, plans, sections, elevations, etc. Some of these are pretty old. All right, and so I'll end with this slide. We'll take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll do the exercise for today. But I think, here I am having taught 25 semesters of this class. And the cool thing is that each semester when I come in, I always get kind of excited because it's a different group of you. You all have something different to bring to the table. You're going to show me something different. You're going to do something different. I mean, well, aside from Charlie Harper, pretty much, I feel like sometimes I've seen it all. And then you guys come up with something totally different. And that's part of what makes it exciting for me to come back. I get inspired by you guys. And so I like to teach it. I like to get you guys going on this kind of stuff because you come up with something that I haven't seen. And that's pretty cool. When you think about 25 semesters times 30 students per semester, there's a lot of you. And there's a lot of Charlie Harpers that I've seen. Can't do it. Anyway, we'll get to Charlie Harper. Don't worry. That's kind of an inside joke to myself. But we'll go. OK, so we're going to take a break. It is 8:58, pretty close to on time, to my 8:55 time. That's good. Let's take a 10-minute break today because we got plenty of time. It will not take you the full 2 hours to go through the lab exercise. So today will be one of those few days when you actually get to leave early. But we'll make sure everybody gets their exercise done. If anybody's not officially in the class yet, stay around so I can talk to you briefly, okay? Otherwise, go get your coffee, come back in 10 minutes. It's 8:58, come back at 9, well, let's just round it up. We'll say 9:10, okay? Perfect. Okay, so we're going to get started again. This will mark the beginning of the lab portion for today of class. So you guys should have all gotten the Exercise 101 handout. That's what we're going to be going through. Like I said, today is very much about getting things sorted out. So for those of you that still want in the class, who are on the, well, there is no wait list, but who want in, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit until I set up your accounts. If you're already in my 136 class, there's a couple of you in that boat. You already got an account for 136, the same account, so you just use it for 135 too. So we don't have to worry about that. The rest of you should have gotten an email probably yesterday with your account for the Digital Tools class. If you already took my class once, I don't know if there's anybody. Yeah, there's a couple of you. You can use the same account that you used before. So you only ever need one account. But if you didn't get an email from the Digital Tools website with your new account, it would be the email that is on your registration. So for most of you, it's your Insight email, but for some of you, it's your personal email because you managed to change it. It doesn't really matter what email. I could care less what email. It needs to be associated with an email. If you didn't get the email from me, it might be in your spam folder. Gmail loves to throw it in the spam folder, so you might check there. But you can also just go to the login page. So if you click on the login button here, it'll take you to the login page, and there's a lost your password link. You could click on that, and it will send you a new temporary password. You don't have to stick with whatever the temporary password is that they send to you. It's a complex string of numbers. It's like a copy and paste kind of thing. We'll talk about passwords next class and the importance of having complicated passwords. But for right now, you can change it to Fido123. That's fine. When you first log in. This is logged in. As soon as you log in, you'll see a black bar that goes across the page. That means you're logged in. That's a good thing. You want to make sure you're logged in before you do things like comments. You'll also find that if you're not logged in, things are blacked out. Those are things that are content restricted that I can't give freely on the internet. I have to have it, people in my class get access to it or whatever. So you can be aware of that kind of stuff. So I want to walk you through what's going on the website a little bit. Then we'll take you to the back end, and I'll explain what's going on there. I'm logged in right now under my faux student account. So this should match what you guys see. It should look similar. From today forward, when I'm logged in, it'll be my administrator account, and there'll be a lot more options, but that's because I'm the administrator of it as well. This is not hosted, like I said, through the school. I actually pay for a virtual private server to run this. It's running out of, I think this one's in LA. I've got a couple of them, so it should be redundant, should back up, because I was never able to handle the bandwidth when all 30 of you were on it at once. So it's a pretty high-end system. It shouldn't crash. That's a good thing. It might, in which case I have backups, so we should be okay. Anyway, I want to walk through the website so you understand what's here and what's going on. We'll start here with the homepage. The homepage essentially doesn't have anything important on it, so we just skip through that. Under About here, you guys are always looking for 135 or things that are in the 100s. I have the course syllabus, which you all got a paper copy of. The online copy is there as well. If you need something, it's there. There is a special section on letters of recommendation. If you want me to write you a letter of recommendation, I don't go through that in advance, but if you end up wanting that, you'll have to read through that. So they're all here. Furthermore, you can go back in time and download old syllabi and whatever. They're all links to the PDFs there as well. So that's under About. There is also under 135, there's a course calendar, and there's also the calendar feeds. We'll talk about that next class, so you can just subscribe to the calendar. It'll show up on your calendar. You don't have to put anything in manually. It's a good system. We'll talk through that next class. Like I said, there's nothing on it yet because I haven't done it, so that's coming. Anyway, it'll be there. Their course YouTube playlists are there as well. Under lectures here, these are all the lectures. You guys will come to the first drop down here. This is 135, spring of 2020. Which will take you to the lectures page. The only lecture listed so far is 101. If I went back to last fall here, you'd see that they all end up showing up by the end of the semester. So they just keep building as we go forward. So you'll have that. You can click over to the YouTube playlists. This is the fall 2019. I haven't done the spring 2020 playlist yet because I don't have the recording until just now, so I have to process it, and then it'll be on the spring playlist. So they're there. When you click on the lecture, eventually the actual live recording will be there that you can watch. It's not there yet because I haven't processed it yet. But you can also see previous lecture videos. These are all the ones from previous semesters. So you can frequently go back in time and watch one that I did last semester if I haven't posted this semester, because they should be somewhat the same. Sometimes the lecture numbers change if I change the order, but I try to put the content the same. So even if this says a different lecture number, the content is supposed to be the same, and that's where they would cross-list. There's usually a lecture download. I haven't posted that one yet. Like I said, I haven't done it yet. But these downloads are the PDFs of whatever slides I show. So if you want to see the full quality of the slides, you can click on that. It'll take you to the PDF, and it'll have all the same stuff. So again, I try to give it to you in any possible way. So it's there for you should you want it. And sometimes there's extra little links and stuff that I'll end up posting. The next section over here is the tutorials section. This is divided into the various software products that we'll use. It does include my other class, so there's Rhino and V-Ray, etc. At the very bottom is something called assemblies. This is where we're using multiple pieces of different software to put things together. We're going to start in Photoshop. And so, for example, I'll click on the 1.2 levels to show you. So here's Photoshop 1.2. There's a video that shows you what I'm doing, and then it goes through with little screen captures and what have you to try to talk through exactly what's going on. So video, write-up, book. I'm trying to get you guys to learn this so that you guys see what I'm doing here. So there's lots of redundancy. Frequently, I would encourage people to bring headphones because they like to plug them in and listen, pause, watch, etc. during lab. It's not something where you can have everybody listening at the same time, so bring yourself some headphones. The other thing that I should tell you guys in advance, the last week in February, I'm going to be out of town for the week. There will be a sub who will be here. I don't know who it's going to be yet, but somebody will be here. Class will go on as normal. Sometimes the sub, depending on who I get, will be able to teach whatever it is that I'm talking about for those 2 days. If not, they'll either show the video or have you guys watch the old lecture and do the lab, in which case bringing headphones would be a really good thing for that. I apologize. It's the first time in 12 years where I'm going to be gone a week. It is what it is. Sometimes it happens. You get it. So full disclosure, that's going to happen that last week in February. Anyway, these are here for your benefit. Sometimes things change and there's updates. I think I try to keep up to date on them. Sometimes, let's see if I can find one. The HDR one, yeah, the dialog box here looks different. So Photoshop made a tweak when they switched to the Creative Cloud version. So sometimes there's little things that aren't quite right that I haven't updated. I try to go back and update them, but for the most part, you should be pretty easy to follow along. Okay. So that's the tutorial section. They're all available there. The exercises, this is where you're going to access the exercise handouts, like 101. This is our exercise for today. This is exercise 101. If I click on exercise 101, it'll give you the text of everything that's on the handout, but it'll also make all the links live. I'll point out right now, we're going to come back and do the rest of the exercise, but under part 3, there is a survey. It's the Career Education Survey. It's required for everybody to do it once each semester. So if you guys were here in the fall, you did it. You probably did it through your Canvas system, which was really awkward, and a bunch of the results got screwed up and whatever. So they changed the system. It's not through Canvas anymore. It's through a SurveyMonkey. It's entirely separate. That lets me give you a link. So as part of your exercise today, my guess is this is the first class you've had, so you need to fill it out when you do it. Furthermore, the career education person who's in charge of that for DVC is going to be here on Wednesday during the lab portion of class. She is there to help you guys in your career search, getting ready for jobs and that sort of thing. We're going to be working on resume. We're going to be working on that kind of stuff on Wednesday. So she'll be here to help you. So if you have questions for her, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of at least meet her and realize what kinds of services they have to help you guys out. So anyway, if you would please fill that out today, that'd be great. It's a lot easier to click on the link than it is to type it in, so that's why the link is there for you as well. So that's your exercise. If you get all the way down to the bottom, there's a link to download the PDF, so you can click on that, you can download the PDF, you can print it yourself. If you miss a day of class and you come to me and say, hey, can I have the handout for last class? I'm going to say go to the website. I don't keep the handouts longer than the day. They get passed out. Whatever it doesn't get used gets recycled. So you can print your own at whatever point. So those are the exercises. That's how you access those. Assignments here is the next category. It doesn't show Spring 2020 yet because you guys haven't had an assignment yet. So as soon as we give you an assignment, it'll say Spring 2020. You would be able to click on that and then go into the actual assignment, same basic information. Okay? Don't go based on last semester's assignments because sometimes they change them or tweak them or have different requirements on them, etc. So there's a chance that they might be the same, but they might adjust a little bit as we go along. Resources, these are things that I think might be helpful for you along the way. They're just collections of stuff. And you can download those and use them. I'll reference them at certain points along in the semester. Next tab over is student work. This is where you see student work. This is where people post their work. And you can pretty easily go in and sort. So if I go to student work and I go to 135 and I come down to exercises, there's exercise 101. This, if I click on it, will show exercise, theoretically, it shows exercise 101. Sometimes students miscategorize. It should show all the posts from exercise 101. This would be for last semester. It's not the current semester because you guys haven't posted yet. But as you post, yours will show up in this list. I think it shows the top 30 or 40 of them. And then you can keep going on to all exercise 101 work. So anyway, that's how you would gain access to it. It helps you with the comments to know and to be able to search what people have done. Assignments will also show up. So you can click on assignments and you can go to the assignment page and see what people have done for assignment 101, etc. Okay? So that's the front end of the website. That's where all the content is. We're going to get to the back end of the website. To do that, we can go up to the black bar that runs across the top of the page. And if you hover over it, right where it says Digital Tools for Designers and Architects, there's something called a dashboard. And you can click on that link for dashboard, and it will take you to the back end of the page. This is where you're going to end up creating your posts. This is where you can see what content you've done, what comments you've done, etc. So first thing I want to do is I want to come down here to where it says Profile. And if I click on Profile, this is information about me. I've gone ahead and I've filled in some of my information. You guys all currently have a username. If I created the account, it's your first letter of your first name followed by your last name, or essentially whatever your Insight email is without the numbers on it, with a period in between. Anyway, you could fill in your first and last name. That's always nice. You can change. You can put a nickname in. You can do a variety of things. We'll get to filling in other content here. But if you come all the way down here under New Password, it kind of forces you into generating a password. If you click on the Generate Password, it gives you some ridiculously long password that you're never going to remember, which is actually a good thing. We'll talk about that next class. However, if you wanted to change the password, you can actually select it, and you could type in, Fido123 or whatever you use. Now, notice that it also throws up this is a very weak password if you don't have a good password, and you would have to check the box saying, yes, I want to use a weak password in order to confirm that change. I'm obviously not going to change my password to this, but that would be how you would change your password, and then you would click on Update Profile. So you don't have to have that random string of numbers. Okay? We'll come back to the profile a little bit more in class going forward. So when we get to creating our first post, that's what we're going to do in part 1 of this. We're going to create a post about some kind of sorry, it's part 2. We're going to create a post about some kind of design. I reference architecture, but if you're an industrial design student, find a website that's interesting for industrial design. Find a product that's interesting. I don't really care what it is, if I'm being honest. We just have to create a first post to prove that you are logged in and that you know how to do this. So in my example here, I went to ArcDaily, which is an architecture website here, and I can look through and I can find something that looks interesting. And of course, there's nothing that looks that interesting to me on the homepage. That looks kind of interesting. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. OK, so I would find something that I think is interesting. I'd take a little bit of time reading about it. So this is a glass curtain wall system. That's kind of interesting. So I need to create a post that's going to have a link to this website. So I'm going to leave it open in this tab. I'm going to come back to the tab that I was working in. I don't remember where it was. Where's my dashboard? There it is. I'm going to come up to that black bar that runs across the top. I'm going to click on this new button here, and I'm going to create a new post. So I'll click on post. And this will bring up the editor where I can actually make my post. It's pretty easy. It's kind of like Word. What you see is what you get. You don't have to know any special code, though you could know code if you wanted to. And so I would say this is a glass curtain wall. Something like that. You don't have to include your name. You don't have to include exercise 101. I'm going to be able to see what you post and probably figure out. It makes it easy for me if you put exercise 101 in the title, though, so I'm probably nicer if you do that. But I'll be able to figure it out as we go forward. So then when we come down here, this is the content section. I've got kind of a Word document, an open file that I can type in here. So this would be a glass curtain wall system. And I might write a little paragraph about what's interesting about it. So whatever, right? You get the idea. I didn't even read the article, so I'm kind of making this up as I go. But you get the idea. Then I might say link to website. And then I want to put the link in down here. So I'll go ahead and hit return again. I'll go back to the website right here. I'll take the link here. I'm going to right-click and say copy. I'll go back to my post, and I'll right-click and say paste. And there's that link. It's not a clickable link yet. So if I select it here and I look at my tools right here, there's a little chain. If I click on that, I can make it a link. It automatically kind of knows it's a link, and I can confirm it, and that makes it a clickable link. I can do things like format. So I could take this link and I could make it a bullet point if I wanted to. I could make something bold by clicking on bold. You guys get the idea. Okay? So you have all the standard editing tools, etc. Now, the other thing about this is right at the top here, it says this entry has no featured image. Okay, so you have to actually post an image associated with the post. This normally isn't a problem because you created some kind of an image with what you were doing, and we post the image as reference. I'm forcing you into having to turn something in so you don't make an empty post. So in this scenario, I need an image. So I might come back here and I might say, oh, I really like this image. I need to save that image. I'll right-click and I'll say Save Image As, and I'll just put it on the desktop here. And I'll click Save. So I save the image. Now if I come back to the post, I need to put that in as what's called the featured image. So to do that, I'll scroll all the way to the very bottom of this page. And on the right side here, it'll say Featured Image, Set Featured Image. So I'll click on that Set Featured Image. And it'll allow me to upload a photo. So in this case, these are all uploads that I've made in the past because I have made posts before. You guys, this will be empty because you've never made a post before. So I need to go ahead and upload a file instead of picking from my media library. So I'll click on Upload Files right here, and then I can select the file. You could drop it from your desktop. You could drag it in. That would work. But there it is. It'll upload. Once it finishes uploading, there it is. I can click on the blue button in the bottom right and say Set Featured Image. And then that image shows up right here. Okay, so as I scroll back up, I'm going to stop when I get to this Categories section. This is how you're going to determine which post it is. So we are in Digital Tools for Designers. There it is. It is not an assignment. It's not Assignment 101. It is an exercise, and it's Exercise 101. So I put those little check marks. The most important one is Exercise 101. You don't have to do the other ones. So I've made that category. That's what's going to allow it to get sorted correctly. When you go to look at student work and you look at Exercise 101, yours will now be in that list. Okay, so that's done. I've put my category in. I've put my featured images. Notice that that banner went away saying I can't publish. Furthermore, the publish icon turned blue and will allow me to publish. Once I have that information, I can go ahead and click on this publish icon, and it will, this is essentially like turning something in. So we'll wait for just a second. It'll create its post. It'll tell me when it was published on. That's good. It's published. Now, the nice thing about this system is you can go back and edit it if you wanted to. So you can post it initially, and you can say about, you know, I want to keep going and keep typing, you know, blah, 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 yeah, whatever. You get the idea. Then I can go back and I can say update, and that's then updated. Okay? Word of caution, just so you know, I can see every one of your updates. I can go back in time and see when you did what over the course of the post. I'm the administrator. I'm God in this scenario, right? So what?
Where is the picture?
Where's the what picture?
The featured picture, the image.
Well, I'm going to show you in a second. So the featured image stays down here in that little box. Okay? In some cases, we'll post multiple pictures, in which case they'll end up inside the post. I'll show you guys how to do that when we get there. For today, it's too much. You don't need to worry about it. You should have spell and grammar check in here. You see that it's highlighted. Spend a little bit of time and double check that things are spelled correctly and whatever. Pay attention to those little red lines and fix them. Obviously, this is in the link, so I'm not worried about it. I think sometimes it'll pop up something saying, are you sure you want to post this? It's got errors in it. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and click on Update again, make sure it's updated. Now, once it's been posted, I can click on this View Post here, or on my black bar at the very top, there's also a button for View Post. If I click on that, it will show me my post. It'll show me my featured image. It'll show me whatever I wrote about it, and it'll give me that link. If I went into student work, and I went to exercises, and I went to exercise 101, guess what? There's my post, and it showed up. So that's a good way of confirming that it posted, and that gives me that little featured, the quick image to be able to see what's going on. Okay? So if you want to see all of your posts, you can go back to your dashboard right here. We can come down to the post section, and you can say, let me see all posts, and it'll show you all your posts. Now, in my scenario, I've created more posts because obviously I've had this account longer, so these are posts from previous semesters, but there is that post. I can go back in and I can edit it, so I can click on Edit, and I can then get back in and edit it. Should be fairly self-explanatory. If you have trouble, don't worry, I'll walk you through it. I've never had somebody not pick up on it within 1 or 2 class days. So I'm not overly worried about what's available to you. Okay, so that's what you're going to do under part 2, and you're going to post it. Under part 3, you're going to fill out that Survey Monkey survey. That's the career education thing. Unless you've already done it, but I don't know how you could have because this is the first class of the semester. So you basically need to fill it out. Those of you that are in my class this afternoon, you're going to get the same link, but you won't have to do it. So you might as well do it. It's important. So you're going to do that under part 3. Part 4, time to go get your flash drive, order it on Amazon, whatever. Have it in class on Wednesday. Some of you have flash drives already. That's fine. You might consider, depending on the size of it, backing your stuff up from last semester and starting fresh this semester. It's up to you. Remember, minimum 32 gigs or larger. I mean, a 32 gig flash drive is like $5 on Amazon. I mean, it's just not expensive anymore. So I'm not worried about that. There's no major, textbook. There's no chemistry textbook that you have to buy for $300. You can afford a flash drive. Get yourself a decent sized flash drive, hopefully one that's a little bit bigger. Remember the little USB extension cable if you have a little flash drive, because that's awesome, and you won't break it off in the machine, or if you break it off, it'll be just the extension cable, and your flash drive will be fine. So you might consider doing that. Many people are going the direction of using the external hard drives. Totally fine with me. I don't care. Be aware that the external hard drives are generally not as good in the wash as a flash drive would be. So they're a little bit bigger, so you're probably not going to end up doing that. But just be aware that they're a little more sensitive than other drives would be. If you're on the wait list and you want, or you're not on the wait list, if you want in the class, give me a little bit of time to figure out who's here, who's not here, who dropped, who didn't drop. I haven't looked at the enrollment as of today, as of this morning. So give me a little bit of time before you leave, but check in with me before you leave, because at least for a couple of you, I'd like to get you ad codes. Some of you might have to hang on for another day or two before I can give you ad codes officially as we sort out who's here and who's not. Okay? So if you finish all of this, you're free to go. It's one of the few days where you're free to go. And have a good rest of your day. Good luck on the rest of your classes. Any questions for me? Yes?
You mentioned earlier us using Photoshop and stuff like that. Do we have access to that outside of the class?
So you'll have access to Photoshop, the Creative Cloud Suite, in this lab during class. Anytime in this lab, the one across the way in 116 or 124, anytime there's not a class in it, you're more than welcome to sit in and work on it. If I'm in, like for example, if I'm in my 136 class and there's open seats in 136, for me, you're more than welcome to come in and work. I have no problem with that. You just have to deal with me talking, but there's no reason not to come in and work. Outside of that, you're subject to whatever the other instructors. I think most of them are pretty nice about if there's empty seats, you go ahead and come in and work. There will be lab hours at some point posted about Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, about when they're open, and so you can use the school computers. There is no requirement as part of this class to buy the subscription to the Creative Cloud, so you can work at home. That being said, frequently people do that anyway. It's pretty hard to be a design student and not have Creative Cloud in some capacity, so you end up kind of getting stuck. It's the nature of the beast. But like I said, in this class, I think you can do almost everything in the lab, period, or with a little bit of extra lab time. So you can probably survive just okay. If you have your own laptop and would prefer to work on your laptop, it's fine with me, but it doesn't mean that I can give your seat away to somebody else, because I'm capped with the number of students, or the number of computers is the number of students I'm allowed to have. So it doesn't do any good, but if you'd rather bring your laptop and you want to work on that, I'm totally fine with that. It doesn't bother me. That basically answers the question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other questions? All right, I'll let you guys work. Silence, crickets, right?